pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any items that, gentlemen, that you'd like to have removed from consent agenda? And we do have public comments listed next. If I have any public comments that are not related to the hearing we have coming up. Okay. We have, next item on the agenda is special activities. We have a proclamation of recognition for Mr. Bill Denlinger, who's turning 100 years old, which is pretty fabulous. And we do have we're going to give you this, and then we're going to have one of these framed and get to you also. And our administrator is going to read this. I'm a little hoarse and probably wouldn't be able to get through it. So Matt, if you would, Matt.
Yeah, the board chairperson asked if I would read this for us. So this proclamation of recognition and achievement of Mr. Bill Denlinger upon his 100th birthday. Whereas Bill Denlinger was inducted into the Armed Forces in September of 1943 at age 19, serving in the Navy. And whereas Denlinger attended boot camp in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and was assigned to various training bases where he learned radio, radar, weaponry, and aviation. And whereas Denlinger served combat duty in Bermuda, assigned as a flight engineer and radar operator with the mission of escorting convoys and performing anti-submarine patrols over the Atlantic front in World War II. And whereas after the war, Denlinger was transferred to Norman, Oklahoma for training on the privateer before being honorably discharged from the Navy on January 1st, 1946. And whereas Denlinger returned to civilian life and worked with careers involving mechanical and design engineering, obtaining 7 patents and retired from Meade Technology Labs in 1988. And whereas Denlinger with his beloved wife Sylvia had 5 children and were married 48 years before her passing in 1990. And whereas he was blessed to find love again with his current wife Ann, who he has been married to for the past 32 years, and has 3 stepchildren. And whereas Denlinger volunteered at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, where he worked in the museum's restoration area and logged over 7,000 volunteer hours from 1988 to 2018. And whereas Mr. Denlinger turned 100 years of age on March 8, 2023, and still tinkers with projects around the house, yard, and garage with a remarkable mental acuity and a sense of humor. Now, therefore, we, the Clear Creek Township Board of Trustees, do hereby offer our admiration, congratulations, and recognition to Mr. Bill Denlinger, commemorating his 100th birthday. Thank you for being here with us tonight so we can celebrate.
Up and say anything?
You don't have to come up. You're welcome to stay right there.
Okay.
If you'd like to say anything, you're more than welcome to.
Yes, I'll have one thing to say. That is that coming through the 100 years, one at a time, it's been fun, hard work, but I made it. But I think on one thing, I don't think I'm going to try for the next 100 years. But I have a wonderful family. I have 4 children with 1 deceased son. And they're all wonderful people. And of course, my wife and I have been married. This coming June will be 32 years. And
60 voice privacy content.
But anyhow, I appreciate your coming here and recognize me as what I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, you're welcome to stay.
Oh, we're gonna.
Thank you all, gentlemen.
Just one question, that's all it is.
Sure.
I live on Crossing Road. Is there any plans to widen Crossing Road? That's my question.
No, sir.
Not at this time.
Not at this time,
Not at this time?
that's correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right, we're gonna go. All right, you ready to go? You can bring back. Okay, while we come on.
Maybe even older.
Some good water on there.
It must be.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, he lives in that third place. A red house? A red house. One that's yellow with red trim.
Need to open the hearing, or reconvene the hearing again.
We'll wait till then.
Yeah. Good call.
Thank you. And I'll take you.
There's a line to some effect about that being.
You look great.
Serving it.
Dress up for you, man.
But I'm gonna leave it right where it's at.
Some people still think that.
I know.
I feel that way. I only feel that way.
Thank you all.
Steve ran with it, yeah. Steve ran with it.
That's what's still in the
Okay.
I didn't go there.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, and we have a hearing to continue. So I'd like to have a motion to recess a regular meeting and open up and continue the public hearing from our last meeting, Resolution 5412.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Mearsclaw. Yay. Mr. Gabbard.
Yay.
Mr. Wade.
Yay.
Jeffrey?
Okay, so there was a request at the last public hearing that the applicant bring back an updated concept plan that located the non-residential use further west into the interior property. So that occurred on March the 7th, we got an update. So if we look on the drawing, this is where the house used to be. It's now the non-residential, and the house has been pushed back further. I have a couple drawing colored items to help understand the property. Blue is road right-of-way dedicated through process. The green is the open space, and we're left with the white area. A couple different ways in which Jimmy looks at it may not make sense to anybody except for our department, but give me a shot here, we'll see if we can figure some things out. Ultimately, we're looking at two different setbacks. We have a setback from this eastern property line, and we have a setback from this eastern property line, this being road right-of-way, this being adjoining property owners. So first of all, discussion. The residence was at 374 feet, it's now at 810 feet from this boundary line. From road right-of-way, it was 746, it's now 1,200 feet from road right-of-way. For the non-residential, which used to be in this location, it used to be 125.19 feet from road right-of-way, it's now back 769.8 feet. And then from this boundary line, it's actually 5 foot further west, so it's 379.8. So the color scheme, we'll get into it here just a moment. So initially the application showed a residential area with a commercial area with acreage specified for each. In the current application, they just said this is the total PUD, which is fine. A couple of ways to look at it. The way in which the first application update that I put together has in pink everything that would be considered non-residential from a location standpoint. So when we enter the property, on State Route 48, going all the way to a 100-foot distance minimum setback, which was a buffer discussion of how far should you be from adjoining properties. Would say this would be a way in which we could look at it from the zoning standpoint. Still, we're looking at the individual uses, when it's been represented, but colors on the map, this is one way to look, with the yellow being the residential. So if that were the case, there would be a total of 9.88 acres of residential and 6.67 of non-residential. Or we could look at it as a balloon, so to speak, in which the area is contained inside a non-residential bubble, and that bubble has to be connected by what would be the path it would go, would be the driveway. And if that's the case, then we're looking at 1.99 acres of non-residential and then 14.56 of residential. This is more in line with what regional planning and zoning commission is looking at. Okay, the bulk of the property is a residential use and there's a minority or minor amount of acreage in non-residential. This also helps if we go down the path for approval for this designation, that the intent of the zoning commission's recommendation, the intent of this body, if that's where you go, is that the non-residential is a minor part of the PUD. So graphically, we're showing it to be a minor part, knowing that if any modification of the concept plan, preliminary, and final to approve that far, would have to come back for a modification. It's just, again, clarifying, this is where we're at this point in the same to go forward. So, with that being said, since you'd asked as a body for this application to come back as a concept modification, it's not the same document that was reviewed by the zoning commission. So if you're going to go forward with approval tonight, you actually cannot approve a resolution 5412 as drafted because it's the recommendation of the zoning commission. It would have to be a modification, so you move to modify the request. If you're going to modify the request, I would ask that number 11, which does not seem to be applicable anymore, is dealing with screening and buffering from State Route 48. Non-residential activity would be taken out. And that we should have further discussion about item number 16, to what you would want to have be appropriate or not, with regards to, because it's been partially achieved, our open space needs to be, open space has been added along this boundary, but we still don't have any open space as a streetscape buffer along State Route 48. And if there was a desire to have anything encapsulate or contain the business area as a buffer from its own property.
Is there anything that you have a buffer around the actual commercial section part of this PUD?
Yeah, the question would be that, because number 16 was wanting to have additional buffer existing along it when it was closer to the road, and wanted it more heavily done. If that's the case, you leave 16 to allow that. If you say no, it's, the distance is appropriate, so those things are discussion. Also, we need to add the date of the concept plan that you're approving this concept, so that would be the March 7th, 2023. And then any additional discussion items that you see fit to add or subtract from the current resolution. So that would be the request for it to be modified if it's an approval. Denial is a denial. Approval would be an approval of what you saw prior to this evening. So with that, I can answer questions before I turn it over to the applicant.
Okay. Obviously, what they've done is move the location for the commercial back away from the road, and with appropriate setbacks. Which I think is what these gentlemen are looking for, to see what the drawing looked like at that point.
In the bubble that you show in slide number 3 is reflective of the amount of space that was originally approved? Or just,
So it's,
I mean, I'll put it a different way, Jeff.
okay.
Similar to what the intent of it was.
So their original request was almost 3 acres.
Okay. So it's
Because
down.
it contained some space they were not using.
Right.
So they still took the same size buildings and the same outdoor storage space. They moved it to the west, and the area that would contain it, having a minimum of 100-foot distance, since that would be their setback, was what created the bubble.
Gotcha.
Now, the bubble does encroach into the open space, so there's an overlap of those things, because it's a 105-foot distance, there's 20-foot open space, so 15-foot of open spaces in setback. That's not inappropriate when you have setbacks for front yards, if you have a streetscape buffer in that area, just when they're exceeding the minimum amount of open space for the PUD.
Right.
So, a couple different ways to look at it, since we've now created a mixed use. How do you want to look at it graphically? Functionally, does it change? They're wanting the listed uses that we talked about the last public hearing. Those are appropriate, and you can afford, if you want to strike or have further discussion about that, it's appropriate.
And if a motion would come to the floor, we need to identify something on the acreage that has to be adjusted in this motion, like 9.9, and you mentioned that earlier. I just want to make sure that there's a
Well,
motion.
I mean, truly, if you're talking about, if you want the bubble idea, you could have it, the non-residential would not exceed staff calculated of 1.99, or you can have it be, this is version that staff colored up as our concept, so it's contained, just so that it helps to document where we're at in the lines. Either way, perfect.
All right.
Okay.
Any questions for Jeff? Okay. I'd like to have the applicant come up if they'd like.
Josh Lyles with Apex Engineering Surveying. I'm the engineer on the project. Nathan Ramsey, 798 Farview Avenue, Lebanon.
Amanda Ramsey, 798 Farview Avenue.
Mainly just here to, any questions you got. Like I said, just kind of want to reiterate what Jeff was saying, with the color thing, any changes we would make or any additions would have to come back before this body. So that's kind of arbitrary as far as what's what. It's all going to be zoned as a PUD, a mixed-use PUD, and that'll cover the entire lot. I think what we've done is to help alleviate some of your concerns as far as setbacks. Like I said, now the nearest we are to the neighbors in the front, we are 380 feet from their back property line, and our intent is to put a pond kind of in between the new building and their property. There's kind of some wet area in there, so we're going to build a pond to help alleviate that. And like I said, then the closest we are to any property line would be 105 feet to the north property line to the farm field. I think from our last presentation, as far as very low, as far as any noise it's going to create, maybe a truck delivery once a month, maybe twice a month, tops. I think it's very, very low impact use. So I hope the changes we have made are satisfactory.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I do not.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you have some comments? You have in the past, and you're more than welcome to speak again.
Sure. Fair Helen, my husband might be here. I don't really want to capitalize on your time with things that I've already said. And I don't know what else I can say to hope that my home and my community that are invested in our property I'm sorry, public speaking is my least favorite game. But it's difficult to wrap my head around why a light industrial business is being allowed to move next to my home. It's being allowed to move in between my home and my neighbors. Why it's appropriate for a light industrial business to have such limited road frontage in between two houses. And the precedent that this sets for our stretch of 48 that has been largely protected from business growth for the past 60 years. We've seen the outcome in our area of what happens with situations like this. The Kendrick facility north of us is an example of something that we had hoped to not repeat as a township. And I understand that the Ramseys have intentions and feelings about how they feel like their business will or will not grow or change in the future, but, you know, the first proposal we saw was for a storage barn, and there was no work, and we were told there would be no work. And the next proposal was for a storage barn with light work, and we were told there would be no sandblasting. And then the next proposal was their entire production to the site. So it's difficult for me to feel reassured by comments that commercial or growth won't happen on this property, because all of the reassurances that I've been given to this point have proved to change.
Understood.
I do feel like our home is being surrounded by a very large question mark for the future. I think at one point, if we need to sell, it will be incredibly difficult to do so with a 22-acre mixed-use facility next to our home. And anybody that tries to purchase our home or the one on Turner Drive isn't going to get to know the Ramseys or their business before they come look at a property. So look at a map, and they'll see 22 acres of mixed-use PUD for companies that every other monument company in this county is a light industrial or industrially zoned piece of property in a commercial zone. And I have to believe that that has evolved that way for a reason. So I would ask you to, you don't really have a great choice to make, right? Somebody is going to walk away unhappy. But I would ask you to consider our investment in our property as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Okay, anybody have any other comments or questions before we close the public hearing? Yes, ma'am. Come on.
Hello again.
Hi.
I'm Helen Kaler, my husband Jim. I have to agree with her. You know, to have, we've been able to keep, you know, to have manufacturing move in, which is basically what it is. There's no guarantees for the future that they won't expand. We've heard rumors that their long-term plan is to move everything out to this property, which will devalue, you know, Turner Drive. Whenever there's business, when you can have a nice, quiet community, you see kids walking on the street, you have adults out taking a walk now. You know, I just think, I hope the board reconsiders. You know, it's not, when we moved out there, it was just farmland, or more farmland. And we would like it to stay that way for the future, you know, to have, you know, they're older homes, but I don't think they should be disrespected, that people can move out to these areas and think they can do whatever they want. Because if you open the door to one, there'll be two, there'll be three, you know, and I just, well, that's my opinion on it.
Okay.
Okay?
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just for the record, we did receive on March the 8th a letter from Gary and Diane Constance of 180 Turner Drive. I'm not going to read it, but the essence was in favor of the request. It is part of your packet, so you guys have.
So in favor.
In favor of the request.
Can you read it?
I can give you a copy. Since it wasn't specific to the update.
May I say something?
Oh, sorry.
Come
Come on up and state your name.
Amanda Ramsey. I just want to say, we want to be those people too. We want to be walking and playing in the neighborhood too. We are a small family-owned and operated company. This industrial use has just really thrown this into a new ball field that we're not ready for, you know what I mean? And that we're so small, that we want to keep the integrity of the land. We don't want to cut down trees. We want to keep it exactly like it is. We want to live there for the rest of our lives. We want to be good neighbors and be quiet and just be able to live where we work. That's it. And we have pushed it back in a sense that no neighbors are going to be able to see it. It's not going to be flagged a commercial lot, because when people drive by, they're not going to be able to see anything. You know, that's why we have put it back in the back. We want to be as private and as secluded as possible back there. So, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing no further comments, I'd like to have a motion to close the public hearing and reconvene our regular meeting.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah. Okay, at this point, we have the resolution on the floor, and we can adopt it as it says or modify it. But it does ask for a OSR1 residential zone, R1 to mixed use planning unit development, MUPD. Now, obviously, the applicant has come back as requested and did a different drawing showing moving the building to farther back to the west and away from State Route 740 or State Route 48, and that they have shown us a different look than what they had provided, which is what was asked by the trustees. You guys have any comments, questions?
I think we need to talk about item 11 and item 16 per Jeff's discussion.
Okay.
My thought process is the bubble color, we can call it that, is the least invasive. And I would think that item 11 would stay as put into the resolution.
Am I reading the right one? 11 is for the screening?
Yes.
For parking lot screening. So you want them to screen that, even that, back that far off the road?
The most that we can do to screen the area that's being used for business is what I'm looking for. Now, there's a natural screen, I believe, on the south end, or excuse me, the north end. I went to do a site visit and couldn't get all the way back there, but there is some vegetation. I would like it to be a little bit more formalized. I feel like item 11 does that. Am I wrong in saying that, Jeff?
But, the reason I brought to your attention, the emphasis or the discussion at the zoning commission was you didn't want to see it from State Route 48. You had the benefit of distance. So when you talk about buffers, you're talking about a vertical and a horizontal typical.
Right.
So you've increased it. You're wanting to make sure that when it comes back for the stage 2, that it has the appropriate parking lot buffer that would be required of a non-residential. Then the tweak would be that it would meet that expectation. We take out State Route 48.
Right.
It is truly the element that makes it different.
We're talking, it's more than 100 yards off of 48 right now, the bubble ones.
Yeah, I mean, your bubble is
770 feet.
yeah.
770. Over 200 yards.
Right. 250 yards roughly.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's ultimately, you're setting the stage, if you prove conceiving, you're setting the stage for what they have to come back for the stage 2. And you don't have to make all the decisions about how it has to look, but since it was moved, I want to see if that intent and desire was still in place, or if you're giving credit for distance. It sounds like you're wanting to make sure that there's still a screening buffer that will occur. So be on, if approved decision, be on the lookout when you come back to stage 2. We're going to be looking for these things. We're going to want to make sure that's in place.
Yeah,
so elimination.
My house is 350 yards off the road, and you can see mine plain as day. You can see me come out the front door and do a dance. So I'm not saying that that's what this is. I know, I'm sorry. anything any of my neighbors want to see, but I'm looking at it from, let's just say that the rest of the vegetation is no longer there. And this is what we have to do in this case, because, as we know, it's never, it's here, there, and somewhere in between. So, I would like to see that remain, yes.
So if we took out
Took out the
from
statement
State Route
from
48,
yeah.
then that addresses that. Okay.
And any type of buffer also helps with sound and the like,
Okay.
as Mr. Palmer likes to say. Item 16 is
So you would,
pretty much already there.
yeah, except for the eastern boundary, so there's still a need for a streetscape buffer for going down the same path as we just did, but we want to separate and have things not between. Typically, along State Route 48, there'd be a requirement for screening
The
buffer.
screen on the road, okay.
So if that's the case, we take out the word northern and southern, and take out the non-residential area, so the open space shall be added along the eastern property line, period. That would give that screen buffering may be added along, or shall be added along the northern and southern property line of proposed outdoor storage. That's the other discussion. We're just going to have it so that there's going to be screening for that. How about vegetation screening shall be required around the outdoor storage and barn area, and something of that degree. We take out some of the words, but the intent coming back, when this make a stage 2, you're wanting that bubble to be defined by vegetation, if I'm understanding correctly.
That's what I would like, yes.
So that wording can be done.
Mainly leaving the vegetation that's there as opposed to putting something in.
Okay.
Well,
How about should be required?
yeah, I mean, that's the next stage, is to define that.
Stage 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I have direction on that one. So then the last sentence is just the boilerplate for the reference in the zoning resolution.
Right, same as in 11.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then you add the date of the updated concept plan, and that you're looking at as the bubble, as the philosophical representation of the property. I think that then is number 18.
18,
And then anything else that within the text that you either wanted to remove, modify, or add, I'm starting with number 19. That would then be the approval of a modification. So you would modify based upon the discussion as we go there.
And that would be an exhibit, then the bubble concept would be an exhibit or not? Is that helpful to you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's the visual, if we took theirs
Yeah.
as amended with staff's version,
Yeah.
whatever, showing that it's non-residential being 1.99 roughly
Yeah.
acreage. That would be the one we'd look at from that point forward.
Okay, I would say that I appreciate the work they've done and the engineering and what they've come back for, the changes to make it more acceptable. However, I still don't think it's an appropriate spot zone for just a commercial product in that area. And this does, if we do this, it easily could open up everything to the north. And to the west. So, for that reason, I'm not in favor of this particular project, even though I know they've done a nice job with it. It's changing the zoning in that area and opens it up to more aggressive zoning even in the future. Just my opinion. Okay, any other comments?
I appreciate those thoughts, but I think the intent for this idea is not to open it up, but to have something that would help their family, their livelihood, without disturbing Turner Drive or the neighbors along 48. And I think I would lean toward approving this, so, just because the intent is not to expand into something. And if we had that top illustration, that could create some questions in what's going to happen in the future. With this bubble concept, I think it's just limiting or protecting us from any changes happening other than what has been presented to us. And in the future, if we do have questions to the north or whatever, then we have control of what we think is appropriate.
Okay. Would like to, for any other discussion, would you like to present a motion?
I would make a motion to approve a modified modification of resolution 5412 with the modifications noted throughout our discussion.
I'll second that.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Muersfall?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Nay. Okay, that's, ends our public hearing, and we thank you all for participating. Okay, next item on the agenda is fiscal business.
Yes, sir.
Russell, what's going on?
Well, we have the letter that was in the packet that officially terminates the relationship with the UAN network, and that'll be coming down to your signature. And of course, you know, we replaced that with SSI, which is a much better software package. So that's in your packet, and that's oh, we did get our fourth advance from the county today. Got another 1.7 million. So that they've done an exemplary job in giving us money as they get it. And I mean, just that amount of money gives us about $200 and some every day that we get it. So I appreciate them keep advancing us that money because it allows us to make money on the money that the citizens have given us.
On our money.
On our money, not them. Not us. So I appreciate
That's a very good thing.
that. Is good.
Yeah. It hasn't always been the case.
No, it hasn't. For sure. That's it, sir.
Okay, anybody have any questions for us? All right. Moving on to new business, police department, we have resolution 5417, a resolution accepting a donation from the United States Pretrial Service Division to benefit Vickery Township Police Department.
It's a little awkward. The supervisor for that division lives in the township, and they have been assigned new weapons. They're old weapons, which are old, and some of them are brand new, are 40 caliber weapons. We haven't carried that weapon in probably 14, 15 years here. There's a tendency for police departments to go away from that, and has been for the last 14, 15 years. We did also. They had two choices: either store them someplace indefinitely or donate them to the police department. We talked about it. I told them the only reason I would be taking this to try to monetize them in a trade-in that benefits all officers at some point in time. It's not something we're going to issue out necessarily. And they were fine with that. They brought the weapons in last week and signed them over to us pending the board's approval that we accept them. So I would ask the board to accept that under those conditions.
Anybody have any questions of the chief?
How many were there?
13 total. So they're large frame 40 cals and some medium frame 40 cals. We carried those when I first came here.
I was gonna say, it hasn't been that, I guess it has been that long.
This is my 16th year.
And but you traded the 40s in right after I started, I think.
Yeah,
along with the
45s. And there were some studies that came out, shots down range with 9mm recoil being less, puts more shots down range. Everybody's switching back. That's what they did. They switched back to 9mm based on some of those studies, and that's kind of the trend right now. Going around law enforcement is higher capacity magazines, so you can carry more ammunition on your person, and more shots down range, less recoil, so you're a little more accurate, hopefully. So, interesting.
Okay, so motion to accept this donation.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Muersfall?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay.
Yay.
How did you determine the value? Did you already?
We had, I think, advances in Kiesler both give us an approximate value of weapons.
On trade.
On a trade-in, it's not, it's obviously not the retail cost they would charge, but trade-in value for us to use that to monetize it somehow.
Okay. Item number 2, under the police department, we have a recommendation to accept a grant award of $70,000+ from the Ohio Department of Public Safety to initiate the body camera program.
Yeah, in our budget this year, we're replacing all our in-car cameras. Some of them are starting to fail. It's the end of that technological cycle for that particular one. There's certainly value in having the ability to record. Along with that, there's the handwriting's kind of getting on the wall that at some point in time, we may be forced to accept body cameras throughout the nation. So looking to get in front of that. The state has run a couple of grant programs for that. This was the second phase of this grant program. With the board's approval, we applied for that. They awarded us the $70,273. That's one of the highest ones in the state that came out to start a program. We already had in our budget the in-car cameras. These body cameras will marry with that in-car camera where the devices will download into the cars and communicate with the cars and so forth. So it makes a very neat system to work with. The grant requires, it's a 5-year participation in it, year 2.5. The company would give us brand new equipment and roll that old stuff out. So the first 3 years, the grant would cover for the program. Year 2026, 2027, we would have to pay toward the finish of that 5-year program. We would look at additional grants available to try to do that at that point in time. But this covered the first 3 years. It's unfortunate we had a shooting. The value of that was we did have a video. Good and bad, but the good part was it was very cut and dry what happened. Kept the naysayers at bay a little bit. So the value of that to resolve that quickly was valuable. With BCI and prosecutors almost being able to look at that. So I would recommend we continue to advance to anything that assists with what our officers do, and certainly it's a program that shows transparency to the public. So I would ask you to accept the grant, which will allow me to get us moving toward the in-cars and the body camera program that we want us to do.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, okay. What additional costs are we going to have because we are going with the body cam?
Well, the thing I see, sir, would be, I don't know if you saw in the paper today in Middletown, they turned their grant down because you've got to have somebody that processes the video off of that. We don't get a ton of public record, but when they know about that, you'll get more. Mr. Clark and I have talked extensively about that. We have a plan, hopefully, to offset that that would involve an ability to help not just with recording that video and doing it, but also be able to spell both buildings. Once we move up on the hill, we're going to be short a person to do vacations, things like that. Somebody could float back and forth. So we're working on a plan within my current budget. It would not increase the budget, but it would be within the current budget, just moving the numbers around a little bit to make that work. So there would be a cost of somebody to help do that. That person would also have other functions. However, it would not be an increase in my budget because we would currently do some twisting around within the budget I currently have. Other than that, I don't know of any other costs.
But this 70,000 is really just a start. Over the next several years, it's going to continue to grow, and we'll need to add money to that.
Correct. Yes. There'll be a renewal at that 5 years, so I'll have to address it at that one time. It's kind of no different than the in-car cameras we currently have. At about year 5 or 6, we're having to roll those anyways because the technology
might get another grant.
Yeah.
But do we have a number that we're going to need to come up with to outfit everybody with this? If we've got 70,000 right now, but to initiate it, is it going to take another 50,000 more, or?
No, this would provide 16 cameras for the police department. Certainly cameras on hold for charging, so we can trade those out as the cycle goes through the, the 24-hour shift. You'll get about 8 or 10 hours out of it, so we need some that can spare. If we break one goes down for something, we'd have some in spare. So the equipment should be, this price should include every piece of equipment we need, the chargers, the cameras and so forth, to do that, so there should be no startup costs that I can see right now.
And would this not be something that would be eligible for low grant money as well?
Could be, yeah. Yeah, it could be something we could loan.
Okay.
Brian, do you have any thoughts?
On what specifically, I think the body, I would say from a liability standpoint, the body cam footage exonerates 99.9% of what the officers do and what the firefighters do. So I think that's it from a liability standpoint, it's positive. I will also say Chief and Matt are very smart to recognize, once folks recognize and understand that there is body cam footage available, then they start making public record requests. And so there is a
Obligation.
yeah, and there's an obligation under the law to respond to that. So yeah, but I think overall, from a liability standpoint, the exonerative factor and the not only prosecutions, right? Because what you'll see a lot of it is, well, particularly on traffic stops, well, the officer said this to me, the officer said that to me, or Miranda instances where there's some allegation of coercion, some allegation of pressure, and then they see how they were on the body cam, and they go, and once the judge looks at the, no amount of lawyer argument beats the footage. So I think it's overall, it's a benefit there for prosecution and also for civil liability as well. Did that answer your question, Mr. Mears? Okay.
Yeah, the backside cost is similar to when the in-cars first came out. You get people who contest even traffic tickets and so forth, and so that requires overtime to the officer for court, appearance in court and so forth. I would think that we would see some similar reaction the same way that when the in-car started, it tested a little bit, but then it was, you've got me on camera, so it did away with some of that extra court time and so forth because it was on camera. So it would probably save some money back there. Knock on wood, we don't have a lot of terrible instances. I don't know that we're going to be inundated with that kind of stuff. Certainly a larger place with a lot of issues would have that. I don't expect this to be a ton. There will be some, but I think we can save some money on the backside on court appearances. When they do see the video, they just go, yeah, you've got me, and where the attorney says, they've got you, we're not arguing this. So
that's another fair point. I would also add too, the chief brought something up that not only because on our record retention schedule, we would add this has to be added, but you say no longer of administrative value because that way you can run over them after a certain amount of time or whatever the schedule says for the record retention says for body cam footage. Obviously, it depends on whether there's litigation ongoing or whether or no incident has been raised over the whatever footage that covers for that amount of days, then you can run over them or whatever, so long as we've scheduled that properly in our record retention schedule.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion to accept this grant for $70,000+?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. Okay, anything else, Police Department at this time? Okay. Under administration, we have resolution 5418, a resolution dedicating a portion of Frederick Township shared funds from the American Rescue Plan Act to public safety construction obligations dispensing with the second reading and declaring emergency. Matt?
Yeah, so as I had advised the board, we knew that we were going to have something with the Delta with our borrowed funds versus what the total was going to be for the construction project in light of the cost escalation, pandemic costs, that kind of thing. So we did finally last week exhaust the borrowed funds from the Port Authority for which checks were cut. So we are now getting into the self-pay mode with a couple of the invoices that I sent to you. And if you just add the invoices together, the total's not right. That's because we had to short pay one of the applications with pork buns, and the delta for that was only like $39, so that's why I tacked on to this. So tonight I'm asking the board to approve $67,665.91 in invoices that Oswald has submitted, and the remainder to pay after bills are paid tonight by self-pay is roughly $668,000. So the total self-pay is about 9.9% over budget. And that is the grim truth.
Wow.
Hate to say, but 9.9% almost feels like a victory.
I sort of agree on that too. It's been brutal.
What other horror stories are? For escalation, you're seeing 30% a year.
We couldn't build that building for what, even with, if you add that money to it, we couldn't even come close to building that building today.
No, I had to tell Pat to insure the building for 7.5, even though we built it for 6.
Yeah, unfortunate time, just fact of doing business and.
We deal with it every day.
I don't want to keep my mouth open.
So that's my request tonight, is to self-pay this real portion of this for invoices.
Okay, is there a motion to pay these invoices through resolution 5418?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay.
Thank you.
Planning and zoning.
Yeah, so typically we do setting a public hearing for zoning change requests as consent agenda, but since the next request involves Mr. Wade, he's not appropriately able to vote on setting the date and time, so it falls back to Mr. Cavern's community hall to make sure they're available. So the date that I'm asking for is April the 10th. Public hearing date is our normal trustee meeting night, but if sometimes conflicts exist, and I want to make sure that I have two available since we need two to connect with. So,
Two out of the knee.
yes, correct, sir. So if you guys are available that evening, then a motion for that, a second with just you two voting would be appropriate.
I'm planning on being here.
Right.
Tim, calling me about.
Oh, then we made it right in
Better
time.
make it happen.
I will be here and, I will read the recommendation to set public hearing change at 2815 Factory Road to rezone 24.9236 acres from SR1 to R1.
So it'll be on April the 10th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m.
Correct.
Right?
Was that a motion?
That's,
You're asking for a motion?
I have to read it, so you have to make a motion.
Okay, I'll move.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
And Mr. Wade, you are?
Yeah.
He has to say it, but everybody else.
We're just making sure.
That was Dolby surround sound right there. Glad you want to have, Steve and I would expect the same type of consideration. I
We
appreciate
just don't
you
want to have
looking
to
at it.
embrace one, that's all.
Anything else, Jeff?
No, sir.
Road department, anything other than in the consent agenda?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Steve, anything?
I did want to add a last minute thing. I know we don't try not to do this, but we just found out over the weekend that the Bureau of Workers' Compensation added a list of equipment we need to replace to their items we need to apply for grants. So I'd like to get permission from the board to apply for that grant. So, yeah.
Is there a motion to direct Steve and his staff to apply for the grant through the workers' comp, Bureau of Workers' Compensation?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah.
And I did want to give a thank you to Ryan and his road crew. We had to expand our back parking lot at Station 22 with a new truck coming into a lot for the turn to get out of there. They did a fantastic job, saved us a ton of money by doing the work. I'm very, very appreciative of them.
The question is, how good are you at making pickleball courts?
We could try to put one at the back of the station.
Yeah, but
Not at Station 22.
Right.
Physical activities.
Then up in the garage, you
Yeah.
just blow out.
There are guys right there. Yeah.
He does have a new roller. He has a new roller.
Yeah,
Haven't got it yet,
nice road.
but we will. We can talk about that if you want.
Okay, Anything else under new business? Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yay.
Mr. Wade.
Yay. And then we have staff updates.
Got a couple of things, first being House Bill 1, which I've sent you guys some information on both Friday and this morning. It's a very fluid situation. Everybody seems pretty convinced that the bill is not going to move forward as drafted. There's going to be significant
That's good.
modifications to it, which I think is a good thing. I have some real concerns about some of the financial impacts to townships, and frankly, the counties too. Any special district, school district, fire district, and MRDB, anything that is touched by the formulation of how property taxes are meted out and how it's collected, at the rate it's collected. So I have some concerns as drafted. ETA seems to be all over it. The County Commissioners Association of Ohio, or CCAO, has opined on it as well. I've touched base with several administrators in the county, one being Eric, my former colleague at Deerfield, who is kind of spearheading the effort to draft a letter to the bill sponsor to convey our concerns about it as drafted. So by the time he finishes the draft, it may have completely changed by then too. So it's just something to keep your eyes and ears on, and I will keep you updated as I see information about it. But efforts are underway to try to lobby our representatives to make some changes, in that bill.
Okay.
The second item I have is we're getting very, very close to a ribbon cutting on the police department. So if you guys have a preferred date and time that you'd like to work around, I'd be happy to facilitate that and make sure that the press is aware and everybody else.
10 to 4:30 sounds like a fantastic time to me.
What day?
The day of our meeting.
Oh.
To do it an hour before the meeting.
That makes no difference to me. I'm not going anywhere.
As long as there's snacks.
That's right, that's a good point. And we get first dibs
I was-
back
I was-
before Brian.
I'll be there about you that love donuts.
Yeah.
Tell Brian that ribbon cutting till 6.
There'll be a diet Mountain Dew for you.
On your way out.
On your way out.
I'll make sure there's some alcohol there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No, seriously, you want to do it an hour before next meeting?
I mean, I was joking, but I'm, whatever, are you planning on doing a community walkthrough type thing, or no? Or stakeholder, or?
Part of the building may get restricted because I don't want people seeing the layout of it. But, yeah, we could open some of it up, absolutely.
I've had, I don't know about you guys, but I've had several people ask me if we were gonna do anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we can accommodate that.
we wanna try to do it all on the same day. Is it gonna be ready April 10th?
I was afraid you were gonna ask that.
It should be.
Well, why wouldn't I ask that? You don't cut a ribbon unless you walk through the door.
Yeah.
We can cut the ribbon and just turn around and walk away.
The carpet was
It
made
appears
last
yes.
week.
Ooh, got you to say a date.
Should be. Oh, let's set it if you want to. Good with me.
April 10th at 4:30?
Perfect, fine.
All right.
I'll show up. Send us an
By all means, you're invited at 5:26.
I'm well aware. I won't be there a minute before then.
If you're coming, you might as well bring
Anything
some
else on
survives.
staff
I mean,
updates?
I just did, so we've been working diligently with our construction manager and our architects, trying to get some stuff squared away for Station 24. As you spoke of earlier, it is not a good time to build anything right now. The joke was when we were doing our fire levy was we couldn't have picked the worst time to do a fire levy during a global pandemic. Well, now it's kind of rolled into we couldn't have picked the worst time to build a fire station than shortly after a global pandemic. I know, man. But we were successful on the first one. Hopefully we'll be successful here. So Chief Steve Cox has really been working hard, burning the midnight oil, getting some stuff squared away. So hopefully we're having a meeting tomorrow. We'll get with Russ and Matt after that to get some stuff squared away. Hopefully get a plan to bring to you in a couple of weeks to the meeting to just kind of give you
general idea of the direction we're headed and what things are looking like. So, update you on that progress. But it's stunning what the cost of things are, the lack of resources to build things, and the lead time. That, like the chief, he left out on his generator because they found one somebody didn't want the size. But it's 50 weeks to get a generator and electric switches right now. 50
Yep.
weeks, over 50.
Yeah, there's 3,000 F-150 sitting in Louisville, Kentucky, waiting on one microchip. I mean, it's not the whole generator, it's one piece of it that they can't get, which makes no sense.
Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're doing our best. We cut out a bunch of stuff this week and get the respectable numbers.
Yeah, all you can do.
We'll get there.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody have anything? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah.
6:30.